Mic is on. I can't turn it on. They just said mic's hot.
Just always.
It's just on. Did you catch this announcement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
How's the kid?
She's doing good. Growing so fast. It's amazing. And everyone said that that was going to happen, and I didn't believe them. You know, when you're kind of like knee deep and everything.
It's well documented with pictures.
Of course. Of course.
There's no picture of me except maybe one in 5th grade, one in 10th grade.
Well, it's so, you know, with your phone and your camera these days. I mean, you always have your phone, so you always have the camera.
Different world. Same
Yeah.
world, different place.
Yeah.
Cameras.
Right. Usually I'm like so early to this thing.
Call to order the September 28th, 2015 regular meeting of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission. Commissioner Clower, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure, please rise. Face the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Chairperson Seals,
Here?
Vice Chairperson Kloss,
Here.
Commissioner Hawkinson. Present. Commissioner Hayes,
Here.
Commissioner Altamirano,
Here.
Commissioner Clower,
Here.
Commissioner Volkar,
Present.
alternate Commissioner Brannaman will be absent tonight, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 1A, Oath of Allegiance for Public Officers.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gail Flowers,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations. Item 1B, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the commission. We're not allowed to discuss issues not on the agenda, but we certainly, do we have any slips to speak? Trying to make eye contact, he's not looking at me. Nope. Okay. Okay. Item 1C, commission communications. Anyone have any
Do you want us
communications?
to tell you about our time on the thing or not?
I think on that item.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on that item. Any other? I will share that I had communications both with independent and private legal counsel and several insurance agents regarding an item on our agenda related to contracting and insuring art.
Oh, good.
Great.
Presentations, there are none. Consent agenda. Motion to approve the minutes of the June 28th regular meeting.
I motion that we approve the minutes of June 29th, 2015.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objection or abstention?
Abstention, I wasn't here.
Great, done. On the regular agenda, we're moving item, at the request of a commissioner, we're moving item number 6 up. So the order will go 6, 3, 4, 5. Item number 6.
Good evening, Commissioners. The object of this report is to seek an endorsement from the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission for the use of both a contract and release of liability form for artists displaying their works of art at the Community Center's Gallery 1075. This practice is common amongst public agencies. However, since 2011, it has been spotty at best for staff to be using this practice of requesting artists to sign a contract and a release of liability form. It was the judgment of our former director, Bob Johnston, that we bring this before you for discussion and to seek such an endorsement.
Great.
I have a comment, and it's in this release of liability form. It looks like it's pretty one-sided for the city, and why would any artist ever sign it?
Okay, that's a statement or a question?
Both.
Both? Well, if you read the analysis provided by Mr. Jeff Tonks of YC Parmia, it really is in the city's best interest to protect itself against any liability, given the fact that most public agencies are in the business of running government and not in it for a commercial enterprise. So, when you have your community, which is funding your local government, that's a risk that the YC Parmia believes, and all public agencies believe they need to protect that interest. That there's a lot at stake, and just for the simple fact of trying to provide a service, a product, or in this case, the opportunity to display art, and then have such exposure in the case of loss that they just feel it's best to transfer that risk back to the person who's either participating in the program, the activity, or in this case, displaying the art.
Okay. What if I have a piece of art or that I want to donate to the city to allow them to see it?
To donate?
And I'm donating my piece
For
for
exhibit?
display.
Mhm.
Oh.
And it disappears.
Okay. So when you say donate, that makes it sound like it becomes.
No, I'm allowing it to be displayed.
You're allowing it to be displayed,
Yes.
but
And it
you also
disappears.
have the choice not to do that. If you're donating it, in other words, it's becoming the
No, let's
possession of
skip
the
the word
city.
donate, Andre, because
Okay.
that's tripping you up a little bit here.
Okay.
I'm just, I don't know why I would.
And if that's something I believe that an artist, and the example that Mr. Tonks gave in here, if a softball player refused to sign the roster waiver, you would not let them play. If someone wants to rent the atrium for a wedding reception and refuses to sign the release, you would not let them use the facility. So in this case, if somebody is uncomfortable with displaying their art in our facility, what Mr. Tonks is recommending is that the city then simply say, then we can't display that here, because the city should not assume the risk of the value of that piece of art.
So, any other questions, any feedback down there, questions?
Comments?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm assuming though that when an artist lends their piece of artwork to the city for display, that they are assuming or being told that the city does take responsibility on, some level of protecting that artwork, making sure that security is in place and, doors are locked, alarms are set and stuff like that. So, right, so the city is assuming some sort of, we will take care of your object on a certain level, but understand if it is hanging in a gallery where the public is, there are certain risks
Yes.
involved. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that is correct. We take great measures to hang the art. There's placement, there's securing it to the wall. In some cases, we've had art on pedestals and it's been freestanding. And there's risk involved in all of that, especially in a space where we don't have a guard posted every moment that the facility is open to the public. It's a space that, while it has a lot of exposure to the street and everybody can see it from the sidewalk, inside there are walls that obstruct the view from both from the cafe area and from the front desk, and there are no security cameras located in that area. So it is a risk for any piece of art to be placed in there, and that risk, what we're saying is that risk is the owner. So we're making every precaution we can, given our limited means, to make sure that item is protected. And we have not had to date any issues with any art that we have had displayed.
Have you had issues with art being destroyed or
No.
disappeared or
Not that I'm aware
anything
of, no.
that an artist was upset about?
Not that
or
I'm
tried
aware
to-
of.
So, this is just coming because maybe we ought to do it? It's not
No,
coming
it's-
because of an event? or-
It's come before the commission because the practice of having the contract signed by the artist and having the release of liability signed by the artist was not being done regularly.
And all other municipalities in the area do this?
Yes, according to Mr. Tonks, all other municipalities do this.
So where would those areas be? Where might be another example that the insurance company has had to use this contract to display art?
That I wouldn't be able to tell you. We would have to look into that. But I can tell you that we use release of liability waivers for participants in all of our programs.
Sure.
And
It's a
that is
little
not
different.
uncommon. And when you rent a facility, you're signing a release of liability for that as well.
It's a little different, I think, renting a facility for a wedding and offering a piece of art to be displayed.
I'm actually kind of surprised that this hasn't been done on a regular basis. From my background in museums, it was always done when someone was lending an object to the museum, that they knew that there was a possible risk having that item on display.
Well, we were surprised too. Management was surprised that this was not being done on a regular basis. This should have been happening with every artist for every art display.
I think, in a museum situation, you have locks on the doors. You have people that are there. That's a freewheeling building over there.
Yeah.
There are no lines of sight for protecting it from
Right.
just by the barista.
And that's something that I think anyone who's loading their objects should know what the risks are, and that should be outlined in whatever that they sign. That, no, we don't have 24-hour on-site security, we don't have security cameras, but we do have an alarm on the building, or what have you. I know some of the, when we took in loans, some artists would specifically say, I need a pressure-mounted alarm on this object, or something like that. Coming from a small museum, we could or could not oblige to that request, and then it was up to the artist to decide if it was worth it or not.
And I just had a question about the insurance. You said the insurance is optional at the expense of the artist. Would we coordinate that?
That
For
would
the
be,
artist?
that would be up to the artist
It would be up to the
to
artist.
find and purchase that insurance.
He mentions, do you guys have anything to say?
I've had shows and I've had things taken. I even had a show over there and nothing was taken. It's kind of like a coffee house. Most of the time, there is nobody in that room. There might be students walking through and so forth. But I didn't sign any papers. I would have. I know it's too hard to watch over things. I don't know if the word loss means also theft, the possibility of theft. So loss means it's what's missing. So you might actually add that word in there, loss. It makes me think that somebody lost it as they were taking from the back room to the wall. So maybe clarifying theft, which is a possibility. People can take things off the wall and take it home. So
Commissioner, where do you see that on the form?
where it says loss, I think it's number
I'm sorry, on the first page, second page? on the-
Paragraph 4, loss or damage insurance.
Yes, and on the contract itself, I think it's number 4, it says loss or damage.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions about, or concerns about what's on the contract for art exhibit?
Well, as you know, I have a couple.
Mhm.
When the community center was built across the street and the building was designed, and the intention of the gallery was to create opportunity for West Sacramento artists, and we have some extraordinary artists here. We don't see their work in that gallery for a number of reasons, but I can't help but think that in his argument, he talks about maybe your homeowner's insurance might cover this insurance, or the cost of insuring an exhibit is about $500 to $700 for a 30-day period. And if you are not a homeowner, then you may not have homeowner's insurance that's going to cover it. So to come out of pocket to the tune of, let's say, $600 seems not to be encouraging the artists of West Sacramento. And it's to create a place, part of the intention of that gallery and of the building was to help create a place, to kind of put the flag in the ground on West Cap that this is the center of our community. This is West Sacramento. This is our downtown, our central business district. If the only, and at this point, the gallery is booked until 2017. Yellow Arts reached out and they wanted to do an exhibit around veterans art, and we weren't able to get them on the calendar. But yet, the majority of those artists are not West Sacramento artists. They, to value your art, I mean, some of it is just straight out of pocket, and that is the artist's decision. But if there could be, even the most generous homeowners policy has a $1,000 deductible. So if, in fact, our goal and purpose is to encourage the high school kid, aspiring artists, then if there could be maybe there could be some clause about up to $1,000 or, I mean, the reason that it wasn't a big concern for the last 4 years has been, I think the attitude was, if this ever happens, we'll file a claim. I mean, we'll take care of it. It's what we do in West Sacramento. And while it may not be the usual and standard, it just doesn't, I don't
Smell right.
It just, yeah, it's not usually how we do things, you know? And there is a guard in that building. He's usually sitting behind the desk, but there's a guard in that building. And there's not much traffic. The building is kind of, underutilized, but especially at that end down by the cafe. But it would seem that but how many people work in that building? Not counting childcare.
Not counting. There's probably, there's 3 full-time staff, and at any one time, there's 2 to 3 part-time staff, depending on the programming that's going on.
So there are 5 people and a guard,
in that area that's about from here to Vistara, it just seems like it wouldn't be that hard to wander through and keep an eye on the art. And it doesn't feel encouraging to artists to me, especially if we're developing. I mean, I can think of a list of people that wouldn't put their art in there, and it sits on West Cap, you know? And having spent 20 weeks sitting on West Cap, it's occasionally kind of scary, you know? But the only way for that to change is to increase the foot traffic and to draw people into the community center. And so if we're missing an opportunity with some of our best or up-and-coming artists, then I think it's a shame. And I think that to assume that an artist is going to have money to purchase insurance for a month is a big assumption.
Well, I think that you bring up two different issues where I think it is very important that we have some promotional tools in place, and West Sacramento starts to have more and more kind of foot traffic being drawn to the area. There's definitely nobody out on the sidewalk, period, right now, and I've even been told that some art shows just don't happen because there's not the foot traffic here. But I think that's different than suggesting that artists aren't going to go there. Artists are already, you know,
That's
booked
not what
up
I'm
over
saying.
there.
I don't think that West Sacramento, I know that West Sacramento artists are not, I mean.
Because they're afraid that their art's going to get stolen?
I
No,
don't think they can afford.
because maybe they can't afford the insurance.
Well, you don't have to have insurance to display your art over there, right? It's not a requirement.
It is
Can you
not.
afford the loss?
Yeah,
If you,
well,
if it doesn't mean anything to you, I
yeah,
guess you can-
they had said, Andre had just said that it hasn't happened once that anybody's stolen a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that would be a pretty rare occasion that somebody would go steal somebody's art.
What if they just drop it while they're hanging it?
Yes, but well, then the artist would definitely, and this contract, you know, describes that the artist should be responsible for hanging their own art. Don't let somebody hang the art who's an employee of the city or something that's gonna drop it.
I thought you guys did hang it, Andre.
I
don't
thought
you?
the artists
We,
weren't
we
allowed.
typically hang the art unless the artist insists that they do the hanging themselves.
Well, there could be an issue, but I don't know if this contract, which seems pretty boilerplate, and which does make a lot of sense in the sense that, you know, we are tax dollars of our citizenry, and basically here's some artists, and I think it's a wonderful thing and an important thing that we provide a space for somebody to have an art show or a music show or any sort of show. But, and I think that it makes sense that you say, here's the building, you're responsible for everything else, because that's what we are providing is a facility for our citizens and a public park for our citizens and clean water. But when it comes to this, the very specific thing of an art show, if we started trying to put insurance information into the contracts, I just wanted to discourage from
Can I ask a
that.
question? Perhaps it's a question that might affect how people view this contract. Is it possible to put in a camera or two in the gallery that might calm the artist down, and then security can watch it from the desk that is down the hall?
I don't know that the artists are not calm.
Right.
It's that suddenly, you know, here's my art, excuse me, everybody, here's my art, I'm allowing you to put it up, I'm very excited about it. Oh, what do you mean? If anything happens to it, or if you drop it, or you break it, I'm just out, because I've signed a waiver. I think it has to be fair on both sides. If the city destroys a piece of artwork, they need to make it good.
And I completely agree with that. I agree that if we do something in the course of displaying the art, hanging the art, that we do become responsible, and I think we would own up to that.
But it doesn't
But
say
that's
that
not
in
what
this
this
liability
says.
It doesn't say that.
So, I can't vote for it.
You know, there is a process that any citizen can file a complaint, a claim against the city. That would be a standard procedure that anybody could go through if they felt that something had happened and they sustained some sort of loss with the city from property damage or something else.
Unless they sign this waiver and this contract, and then they have no basis in standing to.
Yeah.
They've given that up.
And typically, if it were a vehicle were dented or something like that, there would be a way of being able to determine what the value is of that damage. In this case, Mr. Tonks points out that, to a certain extent, a lot of the decision about how much art is worth is really arbitrary and could become a contentious issue. And that's something I think that the commission should consider is, who's going to determine what the value is, and, is that something that should be, who's going to be responsible for determining that? And how are we going to resolve that?
I think also it's a give and take. The city provides a forum to have that art displayed, and so therefore the artist may take some risk.
May take all the risk.
And then it's up to
All
them
the
to
risk. All the
decide,
risk.
and it's up to them to decide whether or not they want to display it, one of the rules.
Can I pick up what Gail's, I think, is intimating here, is that it's a boilerplate, and maybe perhaps we can redress the imbalance by having the artist community look at it and say, is there any addendums you would make to this? If they say no, go ahead with it. Is that bad to do?
I think that's really where I'm kind of going with this, is there has to be something, I don't know, if when an artist submits his work, he puts a value on it, so when he does it, so it's an agreed value between you and them, and I just think this needs to be rewritten. It's not nice to the artist. It's great for the city, and I'm all for protecting the city. I'm just not for putting everything on someone who's volunteering something of themselves.
Does the gallery, does it have insurance as of right now? So when you have a show, there's absolutely no insurance?
We're under the umbrella policy we have with the Yolo County Public Agency, Risk Management and Insurance Authority, YC Parmea.
Okay. So if we were to go in a different direction on this contract, it's not like you would have to get a separate insurance policy for every show that was coming out? Because I know sometimes then that could be prohibitive of a small gallery, and then they can't do shows because they can't afford to constantly get new insurance policies to cover the artist's work. And I just want to make sure that if we keep going this direction, we're not going to create another situation by doing that.
And
That's a good point.
I couldn't answer that, but that first question about, would we have to buy a separate policy, but I could tell you that depending on the value that's put on the art and then the cost for insurance for us to purchase, that could become cost prohibitive for us to put art like that in our gallery.
What's the, so I'm assuming this got caught in some kind of an audit with the insurance company. They said, let us see
No,
your.
this was management discovering that we had not been having artists
Ever
sign
done
the
it.
contract.
Yeah.
It happened less often than we wanted it to happen. We had maybe 4 or 5 artists over the course of, how long have we been
4
open now?
years?
3 years, 4 years?
Yeah.
Sign those, and.
So what's the timeline? When do you want to institute this? January?
We were thinking at the first of the year that that would be we would be asking artists between now and December to do that, which, we've only got a few coming up, but as of January, it would be required. So the city would assume some risk between now and the end of the calendar year.
And as you're meeting with artists right now, are you telling them about this potential change coming down, or?
No, we have not until we received an endorsement from the commission.
And so the ask of the commission is to support the document or to, is there a 1.5,
Well, if you look at the alternatives that we have on the second page of the staff report, the other option is that the commission would not endorse the proposal, and this would result in our department seeking additional legal counsel from the city attorney at the cost to the department, which, you know, that may not be much. We might be able to catch the city attorney during the executive team meeting and get him to provide us the information we need, or delay it, and I believe our next meeting is in December.
December 7th.
You know, we're going to have to do what we have to do. The city attorney is probably going to tell us what we should and shouldn't do, and we're going to have to follow that advice. The advice from Mr. Tonks from YC Parmia, again, it is advice, but he says they never tell a public agency, one of their member agencies, what they should do, or what they are obligated to do. It is purely advice. And
So the city attorney hasn't seen this contract?
I can't speak to that. I don't know if he has or not. But again, all of our forms, we vet through YC Parmia, and Jeff Tonks is an attorney as well.
He's also their risk manager, right?
I'm sorry?
He's their risk manager?
Yeah. He's the CEO and risk manager for YC Parmia.
Can we maybe make a motion to see this again with the language rewritten on have it go back for review? I don't know what's.
I'd be interested to see like what the Crocker has their lenders sign, because they deal with, I'm sure, all kinds of different, but they also, I mean, they have, you know, probably
They also
multi-million
have
dollar
state-of-the-art.
exhibits, and they say,
Security
but
system.
I'm sure they have, you know, little bits of language in there that will protect the institution as well as protect the lender of the objects. And
So-
if they have from a personal lender versus from another museum.
So of the three alternatives available to us at this point, is there a motion on one of these three alternatives?
I move to vote for it. I heard and maybe could see reason why the language could be changed to include maybe hanging, and if some employee.
Okay, we vote for it, we're voting for it as it exists.
Right.
Right,
And
so
I'm
if we-
just telling you that I think that you could put language in here that would say hanging. If an employee of the city is hanging something and something gets broken, then maybe there could be reason to then raise that issue with the city and say that some money was lost. But as Andre was pointing out, it seems like that already is something that can happen if something gets broken.
Unless they
Not if
signed
they
this
signed it.
contract.
No, even if they sign this, and a city employee is hanging their art and drops it and breaks it.
That's not what the contract says.
And in that situation, Andre, would this contract, I guess he's not an attorney,
No,
so
I
he can't
actually,
answer that.
I actually think it's probably a good idea that we go back and we talk to YC Parmia about including that if in the course of
Yeah.
hanging the art, it gets damaged, that we would include that. If they're okay with that language, if they're okay with us assuming the liability during that, which I don't know why they wouldn't, that we could include that in both the release of liability and the contract.
So would the motion be
To request this information.
to request additional information before endorsing the proposal, which would be the
Additional
sending it
legal
back to
review.
Parmia, or would it be to ask that the city attorney take a look at it and, or to accept it as it is written? Those are kind of our three options.
I'll make a motion. I move that we don't endorse the proposal at this time and send it back for further review of the liability, the release of liability for the city, and see if they can come up with some language that protects the artist.
I second that motion.
Okay, maybe, do we want to do just an oral vote, or do we want to do a roll call vote?
So two.
All right.
Okay, all those in favor, aye? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstention? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. The regular agenda, item number 3, consideration of public art panel selection for art acquisition in the Bridge District. Katie Jacobson, Community Investment Manager.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. Before I begin my presentation tonight, I want to introduce to you Shelley Willis, who's the Director of the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission. She is helping manage the art selection process that you're considering tonight and under a contract that Sac Metro Arts Commission has with the city. Tonight, staff is recommending that the Commission receive information about the public art panel selection of Federico Diaz to complete a public art installation in the Bridge District Riverwalk and recommend council acceptance of the selection. Additionally, staff is recommending that the Commission consider that the proposal titled West by Janet Zweig be considered at a later date when funding is secured for the Mill Street Pier in the Bridge District. On November 19th, Council executed an agreement with the California Department of Housing and Community Development for approximately $4,000 of housing-related parks grant funding for public art in the Bridge District. And this was matched with approximately $200,000 of CFD 27 funds, which are bond proceeds from assessments on the property owners in the Bridge District. The Bridge District Riverwalk area qualified for this funding due to the completion of the Rivermark residential units that are restricted to low and very low income households. Long-term plans for the Bridge District incorporate art improvements for wayfinding to the river from the interior developments and also to promote a distinct identity in the Bridge District. In general, these improvements are intended to occur over time through public-private dialogue and coincide with private development projects. The HRP funded art is to be installed on the Riverwalk on the city-owned property. On March 30th, the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission heard a presentation on the HRP process and recommended the public art acquisition process to Council. On May 6, 2015, Council approved the art acquisition and selection process. On June 1st, a request for artist proposals was released by the city. Extensive local outreach was completed, including outreach to UC Davis, to Sac State, to Los Rios community colleges. Regional arts councils and commissions were notified and asked to publicize the opportunity. Panelists were asked to send the invitation to any artists that they knew of that might be interested. Over 20 local qualified artists within the SACOG region were contacted personally. The RFP was posted on the Public Art Network listserv. A media release to local news outlets was picked up by radio and TV station and the Sacramento Bee. On June 25th, 2015, the Bridge District Public Art Panel reviewed 87 qualified applications and unanimously selected the following 5 finalists to create a conceptual proposal for the City of West Sacramento Bridge District Riverwalk. The finalists were Federico Diaz, Bill Fontana, Janet Zweig, Stephen Fairfield, and John Bisbee. On June 29th, the Commission received a status update presentation on the selection process. On September 23rd, the panel was convened to interview the finalists and select a winning proposal. The proposed sculpture, titled Subtile by Federico Diaz, was unanimously selected by the panel. River Soundings by Bill Fontana was selected as the alternate proposal for the project. Additionally, the panel concurred that the proposal titled West by Janet Zweig be considered by the Arts Commission and City Council and city staff when funding is ultimately secured for the Mill Street Pier renovation in the Bridge District. We have a PowerPoint, as Shelley is going to go do a presentation of the finalists and their art concepts.
Shelley, can you make sure the microphone's on there?
Say button. With the base of the microphone, hit the button.
Got it. Okay, that's better. It's nice to be back and be before you again on this project. It's really a historic project for not just the city of West Sacramento, but for the area. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to Katie Jacobson for asking me to help with the project, and it's just been amazing working with her and the staff here. You just got a great staff. So I'm going to go through the finalists. Katie asked me to just quickly go through them. I put some biographical information about each of the artists in your packet, so I'm not going to go through any of the background information about the artists, but just know that they're all highly qualified in both studio and public art. And I'll ask at the end if the commissioners who served on the panel would also like to comment. So I'll start with John Bisbee. He's the only artist that I put some of his past work in the slide presentation because it's so difficult to describe his proposal without you seeing this. So John Bisbee has a full career of making art with nails. So these spikes, these sculptures are made with spikes that are about 12 inches long. And you can see that he pounds them and he, maneuvers them into position to make these sculptures and installations. So John Bisbee proposed making 3 sculptures with these spikes along the River Walk in these approximate locations. This reminds me to tell you that these proposals are all conceptual proposals, right? So if you approve Federico Diaz's proposal tonight, then he will go into a design process to create a final design. So the artists, based on the information they had, and they did all visit West Sacramento. They walked the site. They talked with Katie. In some cases, they talked with me. They talked to other folks in the community that they thought would be helpful with their process. But they ultimately made their decisions based on that, that research process, knowing that if they were selected, they'd go in and figure out exactly where they wanted to put the art. So these are just approximate locations for John's sculptures. So he proposed to make 3 sculptures. The first is titled Acorn, and it is in the shape of an acorn. And I put this slide in here because he proposed to make the acorn sort of in a woven material or in a woven process with these nails. And it was to pay homage to the Native American Indian history in Sacramento. West Sacramento, sorry. The other 2 projects or sculptures were also very site-specific in that he drew his concepts from the river and the fish in the river. The one on the left, he proposed making a tree stump that he'd make the nails that sort of bend them in a way that looked like fur. And in this third sculpture, it's the most abstract. He said he purposely made it abstract, but he really was thinking about the river and the salmon and salmon eggs when he created that idea. So this is a little bit testy, so forgive me. The second artist that made a proposal is Stephen Fairfield, and the piece that he proposed was Moray Color Fields. He actually works with a team of artists and engineers, but he's the lead artist. And again, he decided that he would propose 3 sculptures for the River Walk area in those approximate locations. The sculptures would be made with steel in a moire pattern, and although I didn't put any examples of the sculpture in the daytime, the sculptures were meant to create these moire patterns and patterns on the sidewalk so that they would have a really active feel during the daytime. But at night, the sculptures would be triggered by pedestrians walking in and around and under them, and those triggers would create would activate light sensors that would create this sort of dynamic light show. Each of the sculptures are similar in form, but meant to be distinct. And when activated, he wanted to position them in such a way that the light would be reflected on the river. Bill Fontana, he's the alternate for this project, and, you know, in very rare cases, and in fact, and I think in my 30-year career, we've never used an alternate. I want to say that. So it's a very rare case that an alternate is selected, that an artist that's, you know, that's chosen can't for some reason complete the project. So the panel voted for Bill to be the alternate in this case. Bill Fontana, I will say, is a sound artist. He's internationally known. His work has been exhibited at the Whitney American Museum of Art, the Tate Modern, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. But he creates sound. He's a composer of sound, if you will. And so he proposed again to create 3 what he calls portals along the Riverwalk. And those portals would be defined by what you see here, but he's not a sculptor, so he asked a collaborator, an architect, colleague, to create some designs for him, knowing that if he were chosen, he'd work closely with staff and with his collaborator to really define these designs. And, you know, I say this because the panel had a long discussion about the wall, and, you know, the way that the wall sort of blocks the view. And Bill Fontana was very, you know, adamant about saying that this was just very conceptual, and that he would work through some of the difficulties of this piece. So the idea is that the 3 portals would be activated by sounds that Bill Fontana would record from wildlife in the area. And again, the panel said, you know what? Why would we, you know, want to listen to sounds of wildlife when the wildlife is right there? But, you know, again, you have to remember this artist would record many, many hours of sound, and then put that sound into a composition that is art. So, and he expected that these portals would be a place for people to sit, so there would be seating, and it would be very contemplative area, and that you would hear the sounds more peripherally as you were walking down the path, but as you went into the portals, the sounds would become very dynamic. Again, these are the locations for the piece. Janet Zweig, she is the artist that the panel recommended be considered, not selected, but considered if funding should become available for art on the pier that's on the south part of the Riverwalk. Janet Zweig's piece consists of 2 elements, 2 primary elements. One is this word, west. And west would be approximately 30 inches tall. It would have, the sign west would be 30 inches tall and would sit atop this bench that people would be able to sit on. And it's really this sort of interesting piece that's all about orientation and our orientation to the west. So this sign would, these letters would be able to move, and they would be able to be moved by the people experiencing the site. And in a similar way, she showed slides of benches and lounges on the High Line in New York City. So it's a tried and true method. They would move along forged rails that were similar to railroad tracks. And the word would be able to be moved into these 3 positions. So if it's in this position where you on the pier are oriented toward west, it's as if the subject is the citizens of West Sacramento. If the sign or the word is moved to be oriented towards the city of Sacramento, that it has this other different kind of connotation. And then in the 3rd position, which she was a little concerned about the ability to do that with the budget constraints, but thought she could make it work, and also, permitting and that kind of thing. But In the third position, it would close off an area of the pier so that there would be this kind of nice, intimate space for people to gather. So Katie's going to show you a video that demonstrates how this would all work. It would be lit from the inside. And I wanted to say that she set aside in her budget extra funding to create more railings or enhance the railings along the bridge because, of course, Kay Jacobson is working on raising money to rehab the whole structure, and she thought there might be a need to design the railing slightly differently to do something with the concrete or the surface, that kind of thing. All right, thank you. So the next element of the piece, some other views, is, I don't know if you've been out there, but near that pier, those pilings, and, they obviously look like they should be removed, but several of the artists really were excited about the pilings because they are really beautiful. And so Janet decided to use them as part of her piece, again, to orient the viewer to the river and to the place. So she did some studies and determined that in the flow of the river, there is a part of the river that's the zero flow level. So she proposed to mark the pilings every 3 feet from that zero level all the way up to the top of the highest piling and then onto the sign. And she would mark them with these steel bands. The steel bands would also sort of hold the pilings together and become this marker and help the community understand the dynamics of the river. So that's Janet. It's not letting me move it for some reason. There we go. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Why don't we bring up that separate file in Federico? All right, Federico Diaz. Federico Diaz proposes to make a monumental sculpture. So these locations that you're seeing along the river walk are just suggested locations for one major sculpture. Federico has spent a lot of his career working on trying to create situations where you understand the environment in a different way. So he's done projects where he's used computer algorithms to take a voice and make it three-dimensional, make a three-dimensional sculpture out of the voice. He's made major installations or a major installation where he made an installation that takes the activity that's happening in a museum and translates it into a sculpture. So what he is proposing to do is to create a monumental sculpture made out of thousands of stainless steel buttons that are attached to this amazing steel structure that move when the wind touches them. The piece, ideally, he wants the piece to be installed in an area that has some landscape around it. So if you choose to approve his proposal tonight, he would work closely with staff and a landscape architect to really integrate the piece fully into the landscape, and so that the landscape is reflected into the piece. Can you show the video? So to me, this is really interesting because the piece itself will almost disappear in the landscape, and as you move closer to it, it becomes more visible. And we talked a little bit about him really trying to create a piece. This is a good view of a piece that he's done using this method. I can't remember if he said he's done 3 or 4 projects like this. I know that 2 are installed permanently, and 1 has been installed for at least 4 years in a permanent location. But, this idea of sort of challenging site specificity and really, and again, I'm not sure if this will be possible, but that he really takes some sort of invisible environmental aspect of that place and translates it into what will be that sculptural form for the piece. Okay, so that's the finalists. I don't know if Jose or Gail, you want to add anything to the presentation? Any of your comments?
I was very impressed by all the finalists, but Federico Diaz really caught my eye, mainly also because he's internationally, I don't want to say known, but he has worked in London and Tokyo and what have you. So I was very impressed, and I think it'll be great to have him here with Sacramento.
He is fantastic. There was some discussion about how what the piece of work would look like, and how it would be cited, and there was, when we voted for this, we said this would be fine as long as he would work well with the city and make whatever requirements, meet those requirements. And if that did not happen, then we would go to number 2. Oh, sorry. So I just wanted that to be understood by the panel.
Commissioner Clower, would you mind repeating the essence of your comment, please?
What did I say? I said that Mr. Diaz, we voted for him to do this work, or for his piece, subject to his being able to work with us in the siting of the process and maybe the size. It's a very large piece. It's like 26 feet long. And we wanted to be sure that we didn't end up trying to site it in somebody's living room window when the development happened. So, and in the event that he is not able to, doesn't want to change his piece at all, if it needed to be, then we would go to the number 2, the alternate.
And as the alternate, the
sound piece.
sound and the west piece is
The west piece
suggested
is-
for a future project. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
but it's really not tied to anything by this comment, is that correct? I mean, I wouldn't want the development of the pier to be hampered by trying to make sure you have enough money to do the whole deal, or, they have to be exclusive, and
Absolutely. We did, in the recent grant proposal, we included that some of the grant funds could be used for an art element. So I would just like her to be considered among other artists, but not have to come back and redo a whole new proposal, so we could solicit for other artists to be considered, but
Along with
her
her work,
existing
yeah.
proposal could also be considered.
Well, that's really good
that's
planning.
thoughtful.
Good idea.
I don't necessarily want that to be the next piece of art we do for the city, but that's a good, thoughtful.
I really appreciate the animated presentation as it relates to Mr. Diaz's work, because it did bring it into new light. This is fine, but to see it in a landscape and to see the movement through it and the change, I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I have questions about the siting of the piece, and with some other, and so this is on a levee, yes?
Right now, after the selection, because clearly the piece to me, it needs to be near, as close to the water and the
Right.
trees as possible. So I walked the site, and there's the largest node on the Riverwalk, the largest hardscape node in the middle of the Riverwalk is intended to be a plaza. So the land has a little bit different status in terms of there's more room that we have to work in. And then I met with the Sacramento Flood, or West Sacramento, West Safeca, Greg Fabian, and talked to him about the permitting, if I could possibly expand with some pavement that plaza area and push towards the river. And he felt that would have a good chance of being permitted. So that was the direction that we were going in. And then we had asked the artist also to return quickly, but to begin sort of refining, but we will wait for council action.
I have to say too, I was impressed by the whole process. I mean, we started with 87 artists. I didn't think it was that many, but it was a lot. And
It was a
the
really
panel-
lot.
Yeah. And the
Love it.
panel was very diverse, and, we were able to narrow it down to 5. And then from those 5, we chose our finalists. So very impressive process.
Yeah, I wanted to say, of the 5 finalists, and he received a unanimous yes vote, even in the process where they selected the 5 finalists. He was the only finalist that had a unanimous vote from the panel. So they liked him from the start.
The piece would seem to fit not only the community that has been here for generations, but the community that we're welcoming into that area. And it will be interesting to see where it's sited, what the view lines are from, I don't remember exactly where that,
At the plaza location, it's fairly open.
where is that?
It's almost in the exact center of the Riverwalk. It's about at the halfway midpoint.
Okay.
If you walk out there, though, it's by far the largest node, those triangular hardscaped areas. It's
Yeah.
the largest one.
It does need, it would be a shame to stick it out in the middle of an empty field. It does need,
Yeah,
it sings, as it were. And does it make a sound when the wind moves, those little pieces of metal, is there a sound to that?
he didn't talk about a sound.
There must be.
There has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be.
Yeah, just by looking at it, it would appear that there would be some sound.
If it is,
It's-
it's probably subtle.
It's
Right.
also fairly high up in the air, wasn't it, like 9 feet or?
Isn't that
That says it's
No, it's the,
9 feet high.
no.
You know,
but
I have to
no.
correct that. It's actually, in your report, it says it's 26 feet by
9 by 6.
By 8.
and it's 26 feet by 8 feet by 11 feet.
Okay.
And again, these are concept
Right.
proposals,
Right.
so
Sure.
things may evolve. And, in my conversation with Federico a couple days ago, he is fully aware and fully intends to work with the landscape architect to really integrate it fully into the site and work with Katie and her staff to determine exactly the best location for it. He knows that has to evolve, and,
Want to be certain nobody's
Well,
climbing
and
on
then,
it. or-
so
Right.
it would not be intended to be, Andre, it wouldn't be lit at night, or Chris, would it not be lit at night?
Yes, it
What
would,
protects this piece?
it would be lit.
Okay. Okay.
and of course, it would have to be, he'll have to go through the permit process here in the city of West Sacramento, and, they'll look at things like the height.
Welcome to the beautiful side
Yes.
of the river. That's all going to happen.
There you go.
We have, any other questions for Shelley before we move? We have a couple of requests to speak. And then I
Okay.
know there needs to be an action, but,
Thank you.
thank
Comment?
you.
Question? John had one.
You guys have
I
a,
was going to say, are these abstract shapes, or is it a figural, big fish or something? I know you're talking about texture and how beautiful the texture is, but what is the shape? We don't
Well,
know
I
yet.
read in the description, it
Hasn't
talked
been
about
dis-
like a treetop or a cloud or kind of a more free-formed.
Actually, I described it because you weren't looking at anything visual like that, but the intention is that through some sort of algorithm or computer process, he capture what's invisible in the environment at that site, and that's what the form would become. But the form typically looks like that shape, sort of that bulbous, free-form shape.
Thank you. We have 2 requests to speak on this item. The first is from Don Schatzel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Don Schatzel, 2805 Summerfield Court, West Sacramento. As some of you know.
Is that for the record?
Yeah, I'm supposed to. I'm so used to saying that, or, I need to do that. I'm also the president of the West Sacramento Historical Society and a member of the West Sac Trail Riders Association that is committed to the preservation of the equestrian lifestyle in West Sacramento. I thought the presentation was terrific. I liked all of everything I saw, and I encourage everybody to go do it. It was terrific. But some things jumped out at me that really got my attention. I heard words, public input, history, Native American, salmon, wildlife, river, water, all terrific. And I'm glad to hear and see those elements included. I was particularly taken by the piece that had sound of wildlife, and horses are not always tame, and including the sounds of horses and wagons reflects the history of West Sacramento and the agricultural basis of this community. And since I have no artistic talent whatsoever, far be it for me to suggest what an artist should do, but in that particular piece, I think horses would fit, the Old West would fit, the history of West Sacramento would blend in very nicely. So I'm really very impressed, and just felt like I had to chime in with that input. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And Stephen J. Cox, representing the Fulcrum Company.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. I had the pleasure, because I represent the interests of one of the property owners in the Bridge District, to sit on the selection panel for the artwork. And it was a difficult choice. There was an awful lot of very important and substantial work to consider. I wanted to call attention, though if I could, to what I thought was the most important possibility with Federico Diaz's piece. And it emerged from during a conversation that we had with Federico, although it was challenged because Federico's is not a native English speaker, and because we were speaking over a telephone conference system. What became very interesting when we began to explore the relationship of this particular proposal to the body of his work was that his intention was that this work would also deal substantially with data that was collected from its environment. And it raised an interesting possibility, because out of all of the proposals, and this I suppose in some ways argues for why Mr. Fontana's work was selected as an alternate, his work seemed best positioned to take data, information about the actual environment where this art will be installed, and turn that actually into a co-authorship position in the piece itself. And so just think about this conceptually. The artwork that this commission is about to, may approve is actually a work that is in fact a collaboration between the artist and the site. And that's a fantastic story, especially at this moment when we in the Bridge District are proud of what we're accomplishing, the relationship that we have, which is special and very rare in our area, to the riverfront itself. And so I just wanted to have a moment to explain to you what my personal rationale was for coming to the decision I came to and wanting to forward the recommendation that we select Federico Diaz for this important commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, could I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
You were here several years ago with a generous gifting to the community of 2 public art pieces, one which now sits in the garden
Park. Mhm.
The second one, is it Dango, is that the name? What is it called, the piece, the big?
These are dongos.
Dongos.
And they're both by the artist June Kaneko.
The second one, has it been installed, and is it still intended to be in the spot that looked like one of the spots that was being considered for another piece?
Yes, in fact, it is. As you might have noticed when you're out in the Bridge District, the barn is under construction presently. After the structure is erected and the site work begins, and after the intentions of the operator for how the restaurant operations will work out the site, we will come back with a proposal for the siting of the second June Kaneko piece. The intention at the time, when we had talked about those two in relationship to one another, was that hopefully a line of sight connection would be made from Garden Park from one Kaneko piece to the other one
Right.
at the river's edge, and that remains the intention.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you very much. Any other questions or discussion? I have one question, Katie. The maintenance of this piece, does that come out of the CFD?
It can, it's an eligible expense in the, it's CFD, not CFD 27, which is capital only, but they just formed CFDR, which is paying for some of the maintenance, and this could be maintained with CFDR money.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion among the commissioners on this? Comments, feedback? So in a year?
Less than a year.
Well, you know, I guess if we can build a bridge in 2 weeks, we could probably. So in
Well, I
Installation?
need to have the funding expended, at least the $400,000 of state funds expended by the end of June of 2016, which gives us the most challenging schedule imaginable for
Right.
fabrication and transport. And then the states agreed that I can still have more time beyond that to actually install it, as long as I have the state funds expended.
So,
So I would expect that by fall, no later than fall, we would have this piece complete and installed.
so from about a year from now, all of us are fully able and comfortable in speaking about the decision-making process that went into this piece? Yes?
Yes.
And no, it's not a wagon wheel, but yes, we're good? Okay. So I think that staff would like a motion regarding our endorsement.
Okay. I make a motion that we accept the recommendation, both to consider Federico Diaz as the artist to install public art in the Bridge District, and also to recommend to council that we consider Janice Wig for a later project when the funding for the Mill Street Pier.
As a
is approved.
participating.
Correct.
I actually didn't know that I thought we might treat those separately, but the second one, is there still any opportunity to have an alternate artist to the Mill Pier, Mill Street Pier? And is that south of the highway bridge? Is that where that's
It's down.
going to be?
No, north.
It's
It's
north.
north,
You
right.
should go check out where that is exactly.
It's currently fenced off, but you can step around the fence and go out on it, and when you do, it's
Yeah.
For the camera? Yeah.
It's an amazing amenity.
But you have to sign a liability waiver. I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
You are in the middle of the river in this urban setting, but you're just surrounded by the hush of birds and this riparian habitat.
Yeah.
And it's a really amazing and precious amenity, so I'm doing everything I can to get that renovated and open as soon as possible.
But Katie, you'll be back to us with another process involving that pier.
So the status of the pier currently is that the permitting is finished, the match amount is appropriated and approved, the construction bid sets are done, and I have a grant out to River Parkways for the balance of the funding. but we won't know that until next fall if we are accepted. And if we don't win that award, we would either have to fund it through the property owner's CFD 27, which is a possibility, or we would just have to wait until we can secure a grant.
So this motion, the section that includes Janet in this motion is primarily that she be considered one of the screened artists and be allowed to not have to make another trip out, but there would still be a panel brought together, a selection process.
Okay, yeah. Then that answers my question. I'm all for the two motions.
So would you call that a second?
I'd second that.
There you go.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Great. Thank you. Item number 4.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm going to have to leave. I would have considered for item 4 if that works out.
Okay,
But I must go, I'm sorry.
thank you. I'll see you Thursday.
Yes, you will.
Item number 4, request for 2 panelists to assist in selecting 3 finalists to present a public art piece to be installed at Joey Lopes Park. Chris?
Good evening, Commissioners. So Joey Lopes Parks, one of our deliverables for the state park grant is to provide a public art piece. So I'm here before you to request that the commission appoint 2 panelists that can assist in selecting 3 finalists out of the 12 artists. And there's a couple different processes that we could go through for the panelists to act. One of them is to do it online through the cafe website for YOLO Arts, or to actually do a meeting in-house.
So, Chris, who else is on the panel?
Right now, Connie Leak, myself, and somebody from YOLO Arts.
So city staff, Danny from Yellow Arts, and you need 2 commissioners.
Yes, and
To
I was
complete
also
that.
going to invite 2 from Parks Commission, too.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'd have 7 total.
You have commissioners, city staff, and Yellow Arts. And what's the meeting schedule? Do you have any idea? You already have done a call for artists?
Yes, so
Okay.
we're looking at, I go to the Parks Commission next week, so we're looking at the 3rd week in October to start sending out emails and probably start the 4th week in October.
And do you anticipate that it's 2 meetings? It's,
Yeah, I
One
don't
meeting,
expect it
it's-
to take too long, maybe 2 meetings.
okay.
And then I'll
Right.
come back to you guys in December, your next meeting.
Great.
So we can hear the presentations from the 3 finalists.
So the 3 finalists will come to this commission, and then there'll be a selection made among these commissioners for
Correct.
recommendation to council
Yes.
for funding for this piece of public art.
Great.
Okay. So Chris needs the assistance of 2 commissioners to participate in that paneling. Yes?
Yes.
Is there anyone that would like to volunteer? I think typically the commitment is that you will attend all of the meetings, and that's it, that you attend all the meetings.
Yes.
I'd love to volunteer.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if you'll have me.
Yeah, love you.
Commission.
Commission.
And I also indicated that I have to be interested as well.
Great, excellent. So we have 2 commissioners.
All right, thank you.
Everyone's okay with that, yes? We will see all of it. They're going to screen through 12. So, great, thank you. Item number 5, request for approval to release $17,000 in public art funds for Joey Lopes Park art piece. Andre?
The objective of this report is to request approval from the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission to release $17,000 from the Public Art Fund to be used for the selection, acquisition, and installation of public art to be located at Joey Lopes Park. And the city has a Parks Grant Fund, out of which $60,000 will be used to fund a majority of the public art piece. The additional $17,000 from the Public Art Fund will allow the total amount available for this project to increase to $17,000. Included in the cost of the project is $11,250 to Yellow Arts for consultation services, $3,000 for the 3 art project finalists at $1,000 each, and then $2,750 to be available for the contingency. So we're just seeking the commission's approval to go ahead and ask finance to release that $17,000.
And we have, I'm going to need a little assistance with the protocol with this. The request to speak, does that happen before, after we talk? Okay, great. Could I ask a question then? Do you know what the balance is currently in the Public Art Fund?
Yeah, it's, the public art balance is $50,000.
After this or before
After this, it would be $33,000.
We did, however, as a commission, agree to this investment just, in order for the grant to be processed and funded. Any comments? Dean?
What?
Questions?
No, no questions, I think.
Do we have any other expected projects that we might be seeking funds from the account for?
Not at this time.
And any projects on the horizon that would help fund this fund?
Not at this
Any
time.
city projects that,
Not that I'm aware of.
okay.
Is the $1,000 for the 3 art project finalists, is that kind of a reward for being one of the finalists?
Yes.
Yeah.
Quick question. How is money put into this account? Because I know we're taking money out. How can we get more money back in down the road? Or are we going to stay at 33,000 and then just keep depleting it?
I don't have an answer for you on that one, but I could find out.
So the public art policy is that 1% of city building projects are budgeted to go into the public art fund.
Okay.
So when the community center was built across the street, a percentage of that budget then went into the funding for public art that was not only used in that building, but in other public art projects.
Yeah, the community center cost $8.1 million, so we spent $81,000 on the fluttering canopy piece that hangs in the stairwell.
Okay. Thank you.
So if there's no more comments, we have one request to speak. Mr. Schatzel?
Madam Chairperson, be more appropriate to speak after you vote on the item.
After we
Or
vote on the
after
item?
you've made a decision, we're good.
I
don't
thought
I could have
that the-
easily brought this up on item 4 too, or I'll just keep going. We'll keep talking.
So I'm looking for direction.
Okay.
I thought that the public comment came before, so that there was some impact.
He's up there right now.
It's a related issue to the park, not particular to this particular action. But Sylvester Guillemette is a descendant of Joey Lopes. And Sylvester came to the Historical Society. Their family owns the original tractor bought by Joey Lopes with the proceeds from his first boxing match. Here's a guy that went out to get beat up, to make some money, to buy a tractor for his family. He asked the Historical Society if we would hang on to it because they weren't sure what they wanted to do with it. Then we saw the ad in the paper about looking for an artist for art at the Joey Lopes Park. So we have a tractor. And we'd be happy to work with staff. It doesn't have to be this particular art project, but it seems a shame to have the original tractor from the family not included in this park in some way. And the Historical Society would be happy to work with your staff, anybody you want, to try to make that happen. It's the original tractor. We have a picture of him, however grainy, of Joey actually sitting in the tractor. But if there's a way we can work with you and collaborate on making this happen, I think it would be a nice addition to the park. When I say I mean the Historical Society. In fact, last week I was in Truckee. This is an aside story, but right down the main street, they had an old wooden covered wagon, and in the back of the wagon, they had turned it into a planter. And it was part of their street design. It was right in front of a restaurant, right next to the sidewalk, and it just seems like Joey Lopes' tractor might want to find a home in Joey Lopes' park. And so, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, since there have been 12, the call for artists has gone out, and there have been 12 artists selected in the process. We can make sure that staff, that both the Parks Commission is aware of the availability of the donation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not suggesting the tractor is the art piece on the agenda tonight. I'm just letting you know that it might be able to fit in somewhere else.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Those are all the requests to speak on this item. Is there any further discussion, or is there a motion?
I move to recommend that funding, the 17,000 for the selection and acquisition of the public art piece.
Great.
And I'll second.
Thank you.
And I will add that I really do like the idea of having that tractor in there. I need to do that right now, I guess. right?
There is a motion on the table. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? So moved. Okay. That completes all the items on the regular agenda, I believe. Am I still on track with we're good, yes, Dan? Yes, okay. So general administration, miscellaneous, don't have that. Commission calendar, Dan, do you want to?
Quick question on the calendar, do we also meet on November 23rd?
So the staff
Okay.
person that would normally discuss this just ran out.
What's the question?
Are we also meeting on November 23rd?
No, we are not. Our next
Okay.
meeting is the first Monday in...
December 7th,
In
right?
December.
Okay.
I think we moved it from November because of the holiday.
Okay.
So, Dan, will you make a correction to this count? I guess this is the official calendar, and it does still show the November 23rd meeting. So our next meeting will be Monday, December the 7th.
7th, okay.
Okay.
Is that what that means?
A day that will live in infamy.
Yeah.
What? That's my birthday. That's why I said
Is it?
Mhm.
Future item requests from commissioners?
Making sure that.
Direction for staff? So,
Yeah, direction to consider the use of that West Sacramento Historical Society tractor for the Joey Lopez Park
Yeah.
construction.
I believe that Chris Sarosky is the lead on the construction project, so I will talk to him about that, and it'll just certainly depend on if it's appropriate there. Are there any ADA issues? Are there, is it in such shape? It sounds like, I don't believe Mr. Schatz would offer it up if it was a hazard.
right.
So it's just a matter of, okay, how can we make it safe or make it inaccessible if, so people can't climb on it, if there is an issue there. So that'll be something that Mr. Sarosky will have to work out with the ADA team here at the city and probably some risk management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items, future items for agendas? Dan, last month, in fact, periodically, I've asked, and now that the public art fund is being put to good use, but dwindling nonetheless, as I remember, on several of those pieces, we have some maintenance obligation that become, I don't know. I'd like, yeah, the estimated budget for.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's something that Andre and I'll be working on getting we'll take a look at that and see what we can find out for you.
Okay, just so that we can always, we make good recommendations to council, based on expenses that we know that we've put forward to them and they've approved, but it would be good to know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Anything else?
I was just curious, I know it was mentioned about the contracts, and I didn't know if we were going to pursue acquiring contracts from other galleries in the area to see how our contract compares to theirs. I know that was mentioned.
That is going to be part of our research.
Okay, perfect.
And it'll come back to us in December?
Yes.
Okay. Any other? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you so much.
Anthony just seconded that.
Thursday, there will be food from Broderick. Coffee, beverage, there will be food.